Alright, so I actually forgot to finish up example 2, and this is something you're not going to have to do. Not required or whatever, but it's worth mentioning. Proving the limit that we just talked about, the limit as x goes to 10 of 3 minus 2/5 x is equal to -1. So we went through all that part A to figure out our function delta in terms of epsilon. Once you get that, then that allows you to do the proof. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. Again, it's not required in any form, not even on homework. So the proof, one way to do this is you start out by saying, given any epsilon greater than 0, like just give it to me and I can handle it, choose delta to be equal to 5 epsilon over 2. If you choose your delta in that way, by definition of a limit, we have the following, blah blah blah, and then we have our absolute value of x minus a is less than delta for our specific function being equal to x minus 10 absolute value equal to delta, which is 5 epsilon over 2 by our choice. And so what we want to show is this implies that the absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon, and then that would show that it satisfies the definition. So we do a little legwork, or at least I like to, where you actually start with that, even though we're supposed to end with it, to kind of just get rid of some of this craziness with simplifying. So I just plug this stuff in for our function and then simplify it to get 4 minus 2/5 x. And so going back to where we're supposed to start with the absolute value of x minus 10 is less than 5 epsilon over 2, then you start doing this algebra, which is essentially what we did going backwards, starting with what we were trying to show. And you do the algebra to get what we need to have 4 minus 2/5 x. That is what we need to be less than epsilon, and so that is showing that by definition that this function's limit is what we said it was. Now just kind of a cool thing, when you finish a proof, you get to put in this little rectangle and then color it in. That's generic. If you want to be super cool, you can come up with your own tag. Like I had a professor that had the shamrock that he did instead of the square. And that was a personal tag, like, hey, I did this proof and it's awesome. And it's done by me, Dr. Whoever. So anyway, you don't have to do these, but we will be doing proofs in this class. So if you want to come up with your personal tag, feel free. So now let's actually get into a problem that I will expect that you can do. This is an application problem. Suppose you work for a company that manufactures large engines, like Caterpillar or something. You need to design a cylindrical piston that has a diameter of 3 inches. How much variation is allowable for the diameter so that the cross-sectional area is within 0.1 inches squared of 7.0686 inches squared? Find epsilon and delta from the formal definitional limit, which seems like, why would we do that? But it turns out that this idea of precision, what we need for our output, its error, needs to be within something. How do we machine this for the input so that we are guaranteed that? Alright, so where should we start? Well, let's start identifying some of this stuff. So our limit as x goes to a of f of x equals L. And so our f of x in this is like our cross-sectional area as a function of diameter. And so x is equal to d. Just keep that in mind where d is diameter. Some other things, what do we have? What is our area as a function of diameter in general? You know, what is that? Well, we know cross-sectional area for a circle is pi r squared. So the way we can put that in terms of d is just substitute in that the radius would be the diameter divided by 2. This is for a circle. and simplify. So we have pi d squared over 4. Now so we kind of worked on some of these things, but what we're trying to figure out here, how much variation is allowable for the diameter, so the cross-sectional area is within 0.1 inches squared of blah blah blah. So really what this is in the formal definition is the part of the f of x minus L, its absolute value is less than epsilon, is sort of what this is dealing with. But what we have is our cross-sectional area formula in terms of d is pi over 4d squared minus, and the cross-sectional area that we're trying to achieve, the ideal one, is our L. .0686, okay, and then that has to be within 0.1, so that is our epsilon. Now, this is a nonlinear function right here. So what I would suggest that you do is you break this up into a compound inequality. So what this is just going to be pi over 4 d squared minus 7.0686 in the middle, and then that's less than 0.1 on the right, and on the left throw a negative in front. It has to be greater than negative 0.1. So now the first thing is, how much can d vary? Well, you can interpret that as, you know, d in the middle of this inequality and then stuff or numbers on the outside. So solve for d. And so just solving this, I'm going to add this constant to all three places. And so what I get there is 8.8724 less than pi over 4 diameter squared. And then we have 9.1, oops, sorry, I have the wrong values in here. Let me back up. It's on the next step already. 6.9686 and 7.1686. Okay, multiply by pi over 4, or excuse me, multiply by 4 over pi, and then what we will have is 8.8724 about. And when you do this on the homework, etc., I tell you how many places to round to, but we'll just assume it's the same number, significant figures as before. But we'll actually just go by places because not everybody knows sig figs and learn that in chemistry, so I'm not going to do it here. All that's left is to square root everything. And so now we have 2.9787 and 3.0211 as our bounds to 4 places. So this is actually answering part of our question, that that's how much the diameter can vary between those two values. The other thing that was asked is to find epsilon and delta. Well, we actually already figured out what epsilon was. Epsilon was the error tolerance for the area. So that's sort of like our allowable error for our output, which is our cross-sectional area. Now delta is like the corresponding margin of error that's allowed for the input, or the diameter. And so now we need to handle that, and we didn't quite find that yet. So remember, absolute value of x minus a is less than delta from our formal definition. Our d is our x for diameter, and then our ideal diameter in this situation was 3. So it could be a little less than that or a little greater than, but by how much? That is our delta. So to figure this out, notice that we kind of have something like that with our range, and we can repackage it up kind of with our absolute value, or at least kind of get closer to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our inequality that we had, and I'm just going to subtract 3 everywhere. And what do we get? We get negative 0.0213, and we get 0.0211. So now, if this was a linear function, we could repackage this up, and the d minus 3 is less than 1 delta. And this is if it was linear. But it's not in this case. And so we had that squared action going on around the d. That's what made it not linear. So what we do here, kind of thinking back from example 1, is the delta that's going to work is going to be the absolute value. So for nonlinear, our case, you take the absolute value of our candidates and the minimum of those. In symbols, the minimum of the absolute value of delta 1 and delta 2, which in our case is the minimum of 0.0213 and 0.0211. The smaller of those two is the second, so our delta is equal to 0.0211. Alright, so that's it. By the way, you have one like this on your homework. The way I have you round, you do not see a difference in, if you do this correctly, in the deltas like we did with this one. I have you round up to the point where you don't see the difference between those and you get the same thing on the left and on the right. So don't freak out if you don't get values that are unequal there. Sometimes we round off to the point where you don't see the difference. That's it.